No? All righty. Hello, I'd like to call this meeting of the Madison Public Schools Finance Committee to order. It is, well, it was 5:05, now it's 6:05, but you know, it's 8. We have a couple items on our agenda. The first concerns the cleanup of the 25-26 budget, namely some adjustments we might have to make given snow removal costs. And other deficits. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Cook to give us that's a lot of that.
Yes, thank you. And so, and thank you for the board, the committee for being patient. We're working on the sheet that we provided you today, which will be part of the agenda online. Up until this morning, communicating back and forth with Stacy Novitz and her staff, and also the departments in charge of the accounts that we're going to review today. So there was a lot of work that went into this, and I realized this chart's a little confusing, but we wanted to put everything on one piece of paper so we could then review tonight. And I'll start with the top and explain, and it probably makes sense for you for this meeting to stop me as we go through if you have any questions on where things stand. So as of today, where we're projected, and this is always a difficult projection because we still, as you can imagine, have families moving in and out of town, changes to costs and placements, usually for the better. Like that, I would say this is kind of the worst case scenario for special ed external placements. The factor of this also, and a good news scenario, does have several students that will not be part of this account next year. So 12th graders finishing, outplacements that are finishing, another outplacement that was made by board decision that is finishing as well. So this number, we're not as concerned for next year as we are right now. I will say it's a concern, not an alarm. I think we are still in an okay place overall for the budget, but these are the accounts that we're concerned and watching on an almost daily basis right now. So right now, if nothing changes and the students that are on outplacements attend their placements every day, because that impacts transportation and things like that, we would trend towards $245,000 of a cost beyond. We still do have one more state payment for excess costs, so that could impact that. There's been more money in that account this past couple of years, so we've outperformed our projection in that area. So that could come down just for that factor. As the board knows, we do have a special ed account. Jessica may not be aware of that, but we have an account, a balance of $350,000 in the account if we got into a position where we had to utilize that to pay for special ed. My philosophy on this, and it would be something we bring to the board, is if we can cover it within the budget, we would always do that first before utilizing an account like that, because then $350,000 may only represent 2 new students to the district. So I wouldn't want to bring that down any further. In fact, at some point we'll want to look to add to that, as we meet some of the other needs out there. So that's special ed. Repairs and maintenance, that is, Peter's account for fixing things at the schools, kind of on an unexpected basis throughout the year. There's a zero balance in that as of March 5th. I bring that to your attention just because, if we had a major repair or maintenance issue, it'd be something I'd be bringing to the board's account. Based on how things have been trending, Peter estimated that there'd be a $50,000 negative balance in that account by the time we get to the year. So for that one, not as of right now, but it most likely will be in that range, between 0 and 50,000 of a negative for that. As we get to the storm events, that's the kind of the big story for where we stand. Our negative balance for snow is $120,000 and custodial overtime of $25,000. So that's the two accounts as they stand today. They go hand in hand. The custodians overtime is related to all our Sunday cleanups. We do have an account for that. We have just blown through that with the Sunday cleanups, and also doing their best job to make sure we only miss 4 days of school, which I think, as we look back, feel very fortunate for how cold the winter is and how many inches of snow really fell this year, and how we got to the 120. You'll see below the detail. So our original snow budget, which has been decreased over the years because we haven't seen snow, and actually that's a budget line we've oftentimes had a positive balance. So as we've had financial pressures in the past, it's been an account we haven't increased or have decreased over the years. So you see that we start off with about $65,000. We do, if you skip a line, see that we have $50,000 emergency maintenance fund. And so that's been shifted between snow and repairs and maintenance, depending on where the year is at. So what the year is like, so last year that went to repairs and maintenance. It didn't have to go towards snow. This year we put it towards snow. So you'll see that's how we get to the $120,000. Winter's not over yet. We certainly could have a salting event, most likely will, the way things have been going, and maybe even a snow removal event. So we didn't want to, try and get to a final number yet. We certainly will by the next time the committee meets. In terms of where we stand positively on our major accounts, and so let me just share one major piece of news. We have issued kind of basically a soft freeze for the district, and so what that means is, and I've done this one other time in my 5 years here. It's not uncommon for school districts to do this. We have basically said to principals that we're not in other departments, we're not able to approve any purchase orders at this time unless there's, you have approval from Stacy or myself. So, and we call it a soft freeze because there are still, POs that we're going to approve. And so, for example, our foods courses at the high school, they can still buy, milk, eggs, and butter. We're not going to say that, they have to change their curriculum because of this. We're going to be able to survive. And so we're still hiring, positions or subs for, things like that. But, furniture order for next year that normally would go in maybe now, we're holding on, things like that, book purchases for next year, things like that. And so I hope to remove that in about a month, but, I have more concerns than normal at this time of year for the budget. In terms of the positive, so we have $50,000 in utilities that we do not anticipate needing. That's a pretty strong number, and it's a function of two places. Daniel Hand is we turned off basically the power electricity for all of last summer when we didn't have we had the HVAC project going on. So custodians, TJ Sedentary, and the workers were the only ones in there all summer. TJ was not leaving the ship. He was going down the building. So the rest of the administration and the secretaries moved to Polson and enjoyed air conditioning over there in their offices. And TJ, sweated through it. So that was a pretty significant savings, as you can imagine, because it was over 2 months of no utilities really in our biggest building. Oftentimes we're running summer programs in there. So that's one that won't be repeated. The net savings will be repeated, and we have decreased that in our budget going forward. So we've already decreased $20,000 in utilities in our original budget. So the budget the board approved, that was one of the savings that we had in there. So that was a positive news. And we've just seen even better utility savings at NEC than we anticipated on forward. So that's good. HR savings. So as you know, in next year's budget, we're eliminating several open positions. Those have been open this year, and that's the bulk of that $250,000. We also have some unpaid leaves that come up during the year. Somebody's run out of time, so or whatever the factor may be, that they have some unpaid leave. And then another example would be we lost a science teacher at the high school, hired a new science teacher. New science teacher costs less. So those are things that lead to that are not anticipated much earlier in the budget year, but do add up to a sizable number. So that's the $250,000. The building savings, we anticipate from the soft freeze, as I mentioned, to be about $40,000. The special ed additional accounts running, well in those areas. That's the outside placement testings and things like that. We haven't had many of those issues. Also, their legal account, and then our overall legal account is trending towards about $20,000 savings. That would not be repeated. This is our 1 year off from certified negotiations. Typically, usually with the 3 year cycles, we have the teachers and administrators. We will have the administrators next year, and so that's when we utilize an attorney. We do utilize an attorney often for the non-certified, but for the certified teachers last time we did not. So we had some savings that year in that account. For administrators coming up, we would utilize, but this year we're off from that cycle, so that is mostly why the $20,000 is there. Those negotiations oftentimes run between $15,000 and $20,000 for that. So we feel overall the message would be we feel like we're in okay shape. It's just not as good as normal when we come to those because of the special ed and the snow, and we're in this position. So happy to answer any questions the committee might have on that.
So is it fair to say that the net projected deficit right now would be 440,000? That would be 245 for special ed, 50,000 for repairs and maintenance, and roughly 120,000 for snow. And that would take us to 145,000 for snow total, right? That takes us to 440.
Yes.
And as against that, we have approximate savings right now as of 360 before we tap special ed reserve funds, or additional savings that could be realized in special ed.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then the some of the overages, snow removal, like placements and overtime are reflected in the consent agenda, right? The transfers.
Yeah.
Okay, that will come up tonight. Okay.
Yeah, that will lag this number.
Yes, right.
Bills have actuals.
Okay. And I guess that's all the questions I personally had.
We have, as you can imagine, we have a slew of other accounts. Typically they're running, right at or a little bit better than budgeted. So those typically add up. Stacy felt pretty confident with more than make up for that 80,000 delta there. So I think we're in a good place. I did share with the board Friday about the Chromebooks. I just want to bring that to your attention. That would be an area where now I'd be saying to Aaron, based on what he's telling me, there's a huge backlog in Chromebook orders. So that would be something normally I'd be saying, okay, let's try and find some funding to be able to pre-purchase that. But we haven't been able to do that yet because of this. He has some money in a Chromebook account, so he's going to get an order in for some. But that will be a problem come September, unfortunately. But as soon as we feel comfortable, we'll make that move.
Can I ask a question? Are the unanticipated repairs and maintenance, the overage there, is that attributed to damage from the snow?
There is a lot of that, as you've probably seen, in our grounds as well as anywhere else you travel with the curbs and things like that. Peter actually held back $10,000 from our contractor to fix that. So the sign outside of his office got hit by a plow. A lot of curbing at Polson in particular got hit. So that will be some of that, but he does have some funding, held back from the contractor to do that. Great question. Yeah, that is, you can just drive around anywhere. And it's like, oh my goodness.
Do we typically hire an outside company to do those repairs, or are we able to repair curbs and signs?
We would have
Yeah.
to sector out. Yeah. And the sign is another order. Yeah. I'm sure they still have an original order since it's only like 2 years old. So.
Great. Well, if there are no other questions on 25, 26, then maybe we can move on to an update on 26, 27, where we stand on the cycle with the board of finance is due. Sure.
Yeah, I just thought it's timely update to talk about that as well. So we had the public hearing the other night. Seth was in attendance too. So if there's anything I missed, there was I think the biggest question we always get is per pupil expenditure. And so I have another question that I'm working on from a board of finance member that I'll share with the board, of course, on that when I have that done. Stacy was out till tomorrow, so when she's back, I just wanted to run my answer by her, and I'll share that with the board immediately. We're on the higher end of per pupil, but I really attribute it to our decline in enrollment over the years. So we have had about 1,000 less students over the last, when you go back, right, 13, 14 years. And we are one of the smallest schools in our districts in our dirt. So when we compare us to that, oftentimes the larger the district, the lower the per pupil. In a lot of cases, when you look at us in the state as a whole, we're about 50. When you look at us in our dirt, we're number 2 in terms of per pupil expenditure. But I also don't think there's that appetite or need really to make those reductions. We have had other people kind of catch up to us in the state because we've had the lower budget increases over the years. The past 7 years have been really low budget increases. So our per pupil hasn't grown as much as some other places. So so that will be information we share with the Board of Finance, and that's where it stands. The next public hearing is
March 31st.
March 31st, and oftentimes the Board of Finance will set their budget after that. The vote is on April 28th. And the other project that continues to get some attention is the baseball field. And so I have some answers as well to a Board of Finance member who asked about that. For the committee, the design has already been done of the field. And so if we were to convert it back to grass, which was what was suggested in the question, we would have to go back to design. Of course, we'd lose the year, and then we'd be back in the position of having a grass field that we can't really maintain at the level that we would need to keep it safe, keep it looking good and playable for anyone beyond high school is probably what we would see, and for anything other than baseball. So the turf will allow us to have other sports utilize that area when we get there. So we're excited still about that project. I think it's the right move. The baseball team this spring will be the only team that plays on grass. So when we think about our other sports or as I've heard some concern with turf, softball, girls lacrosse, boys lacrosse, spring football, everybody else is soccer plays on turf, so it's very
If there is a risk, it's extremely marginal because.
The studies go
Right.
both ways.
Just because everybody else is already playing on turf.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
Well, and our field has a bunch of divots in it and our ankle biters.
Yeah.
And knee splitters. And to be honest, we need to redirect and change the kind of angle of our field away from the building. And so by the time you do all of that, you're in, what some people have expressed concern about is, oh, we don't need turf, it's too expensive. And what they're not they're looking at the overall price tag, and they're not looking at the delta between what we really need to spend to get that field in any kind of shape, even as a natural turf field. And then they're also leaving out all of the annual amounts that you have to pay for maintenance, and the maintenance ends up being more expensive because you can't use standard pesticides because it's next to a school. So there's a whole host of reasons. And again, one of the largest reasons is because right now we use it basically for one sport only. And if we have turf, we can open it up and allow it to be used for multiple sports. And then we don't have to worry about folks saying, well, how come we need more fields? Well, maybe we don't need as many fields because we can also use it for, you know, lacrosse or soccer or something like that. So there's a whole host of reasons why it makes sense.
And properly speaking, that's a CIP expenditure. However, we did include our excess year-end
Yes.
Yes,
towards that. So in extremis, if we are really short of funds, would we be able to claw some of that back? In other words, let's say we have a 25-inch snowfall in late April, right? Would we be able to take those funds back?
I think the only scenario I would advocate for that is if they change the field on us, you know, so if
Right.
it was, it did pass or was taken out of the CIP project, then I think we would say, because that was a condition of our, piece. I think the, areas that I'd look at too is we, you know, we do have the special ed account. There is some facilities funds that can carry over too. So I think there's some other pieces we could look at first. Yeah.
and again, the savings that we found last year or this year, we've contributed that to really cut deeply into what the delta is
Oh,
between a natural field and
Oh,
a
absolutely.
turf
Right.
field.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
It has been a priority to
Yeah.
get that done, and then I think, you know, we're getting the field house done, you know, this summer, fall, we're really in a good place. Having done tennis and softball, you know, already, so.
All right, well, I think that probably does it for this year's 26-27 budget cycle. Do we have anybody online that would like to make a public comment or have a question?
If you're online and would like to speak, please raise your hand.
I will share when we're waiting too, we still are one of the lowest in the dirt. You know, I think we were just waiting on West Hartford. They're at 6.6%. So they were higher than students.
That's just remarkable. Right?
Which for them was 14 million. I guess.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it's a big district.
Yeah. Nobody got that? Okay, good. All right. Well, I think this is a really good meeting. Thank you. Thank you. That was great. Good questions. And we'll wrap it up, adjourned at 6.